Hey, how you going?
I'm good. Thanks so much for coming on. I so appreciate the time that you're going to spend with us today.
So welcome. I'm so stoked to be here.
And we were just having a little chat off recording, and we're super excited about what we're going to be talking about today. So we are talking all things period, because you are the period expert and founder of My Moonbox. So I'm very excited for someone to actually want to be talking to me about all this stuff. We can dive real deep today. So Nikki, let's just start with a little bit about you in your own words. And I hear you've had a massive year last year. So give us a bit of a rundown of what's been happening for you in the last couple of years.
Sure. So it has been a massive last few years. Quite probably the biggest, most exciting, most challenging times, and it all involved launching a business, or more so setting up the business in the first place. Moonbox, which is very much obviously all around to do with periods and balancing hormones naturally. But my rewind a few years before that, and a really quick summary and how I got to there. It's sounds very cliche, but I was someone who experienced terrible menstrual symptoms growing up. Every period symptom of PMS symptom, you name it, I experienced it. And that's what led me to being put on the pill, then going on the pill, and getting really depressed, losing my libido, losing hair. It just wreaked havoc. Then 6 years later, coming off it and being like, holy moly, what just happened? There has to be another way. And that's when I started studying nutritional health science and getting absolutely obsessed with all things hormones and periods, and really, I guess, finding my calling and wanting to become a voice in the industry. And more than that is providing women with the support that I found that just wasn't there. And it was through changes, from what I was learning, making changes in my lifestyle, my diet, and realizing how powerfully impactful those foundations were. When I got to a place of experiencing, my period would arrive and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have no symptoms. And I'd start to enjoy my period, which people still think I'm crazy about. But I got to that place and I was like, why doesn't every woman know about this? Why is this not mainstream? Why do we not talk about periods? Because the downside of not talking about them is that, we accept these symptoms as normal, and it can lead to further health issues. So I guess that's what got me into thinking, developing Moonbox, and spending a good 2.5 years full-time of my life, first of all, developing the products in collaboration with amazing healthcare practitioners, and then also creating the online program as well, which I thought would be done in a year. Add another 2 years onto that of all the stress and ups and downs that it takes of starting a business. And I launched it finally last year in July, and it was, oh my gosh, it was the highlight of my life. It's all my hard work definitely paid off, and created a really exciting movement of women who are being equipped with the knowledge and information to better understand their cycles, and they see it more as an empowering important natural part of them, instead of something to fear or dread, or that is looked upon as something that you're destined to experience pain and suffering. But yeah, that's my past few years, and just that's pretty much what I live and breathe.
That's amazing. And I think because of the fact that periods aren't spoken about so much, when you get clients in a clinic, as in when I get clients here, it's, oh, how's your period? Oh, it's normal. What's normal? Oh, it hurts. It's got clots. It's got all these sorts of things. I'm like, okay. So we really don't have an idea of what's normal, do we? Or what's healthy? And I think that advocacy that you've provided is just amazing, especially for the younger girls who are coming into it and actually celebrating their menstrual cycle and their beginning of their menses. It's something that we are ashamed for and shamed at for becoming a woman. It's an amazing transition, isn't it? Just as it is an amazing transition back out of it in menopause. So I think it should be a celebration, and women need to almost have that red tent scenario where we're brought into womanhood. And there is a lot more of that out there, right? Well, there's so much more people doing that now, which is amazing. but to have that voice and to have the strength that you have to be able to carry that forward for all the women. I think it's absolutely amazing what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, period parties, red tents and all, bring them on.
Yeah.
Mainstream.
Let's do it. All right. So periods. We all know what a period is, but why is it so important that we care so much about them? So let's just go there first.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we should definitely care about periods. I really think that they are very overlooked, and they're an underutilized vital sign. So just like, say, your blood pressure, your respiratory rate, your temperature, your heart rate, your periods are an incredibly powerful indication of your overall health and even an underlying condition, that may be taking place. So any kind of symptoms you're experiencing, whether it's period irregularities or symptoms of PMS, these can indicate an underlying imbalance, which is so cool because our periods show up every month. So each month we can get this feedback, that our body is providing us, and instead of ignoring it or accepting it, that you just have to put up with it. I really encourage women to tune in and dive deep into, why am I experiencing cramps, or why am I breaking out in acne? Why am I feeling so fatigued? So it's all these signs and symptoms are incredible indications of our overall health, not just stuff with, fertility. Yes, periods are an amazing side of our fertility, but overall health, vitality, and well-being. It's just foundational. That's why, they're so important to care about and take note of.
Absolutely. So let's then talk about what a good healthy period looks like, and there's some comparisons obviously in there, and there's a lot of differences because everyone's individual, and we can even go into some of the conditions that we have that are things like endometriosis and PCOS and all that sort of thing. But to start with, what's sort of a good measure or a good sort of normal line that we are looking at for a period?
Yeah, so when it comes to our period, it really is the sum of three phases. I think it's important everyone understands that. So you've got, say, the follicular phase, which is the first part of your menstrual cycle, and it's going to last approximately 2 weeks, anywhere from 7 to 21 days, because everyone is going to be different, we know. So the follicular phase is then followed by ovulation. We ovulate for the day, and then it's followed by the luteal phase, which is going to last anywhere from 10 to 16 days. So these add up together to form a healthy cycle that is going to be anywhere from, I'd say, 21 to 35 days. Okay. 28 days is the average. I feel like it's a little myth. I feel so many women will be like, oh my gosh, my period isn't 28, my cycle, sorry, isn't 28 days. There's something wrong. And I'm like, well, no, actually, that it's not a rule. Not that's not the rule. It's just an average. So anywhere from 21 to 35 days, and then a healthy period length is going to be between 2 to 7 days. And I would say anything shorter than 2 days, anything longer than 7 days is going to indicate some kind of imbalance, whether it's influenced by, let's go into a whole other thing, but you can look into things like stress, or maybe it's something with your thyroid, PCOS, if your periods are missing and you're ovulating, or there's many factors that can contribute to the length of your period. And then also, one thing I love to encourage women to look at is the color of their period.
Absolutely.
It's missed a lot of the time, but it says a lot, right? We want our period color to be a bright, healthy cranberry red. Not so, it can vary from, people might show up as maybe it's a dark brown, and that, that can be oxidized blood from a previous cycle. Then on the other side, it could indicate maybe there's some circulatory issues, then if your blood, say, is an orange color, maybe it can indicate infection, or if it's really dark purple, maybe it's something like excess estrogen, or if it's really light, watery and pink. And I get a lot of messages about that. Maybe there's low estrogen, or nutrient deficiencies, or maybe anemia. So there's all these amazing indications of the color of our blood can say. Obviously, we wouldn't use it as you're not going to just look at your period blood and be like, that is what I have, and use it as a,
Exactly.
diagnosis. But
Exactly.
it's an extra little, indication we can use, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's like a monthly check-in, isn't it, into your health?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And then with, say, the viscosity of blood, I would say kind of hard to describe, but like you'd want it medium, not too thick, not too thin.
Yeah.
And then with clots as well, I think this is another big thing, is that like large clots, larger than a 20-cent piece, they're not normal, right? And little clots, 5 little clots here and there, 5 cents, smaller clots, they're okay. But larger clots, which I know a lot of women experience, could be underlying issues there as well, like estrogen dominance or something going on. So it's something to look into too and take note of. And I think a lot of the time that like clots are ignored and just looked at as normal, like I find with conversations I have with people on the program. And then lastly, I'll say is that like your period should really arrive with minimal symptoms, very minimal symptoms. You shouldn't have to, there shouldn't be a grand entrance for 7 days of like, cramps and menstrual headaches and fatigue and acne. Like it shouldn't be like
I'm coming.
Right? Like I'll never forget the first time my period just arrived and I didn't even know it was coming. And I was like, and that was, very early days, years ago, when I just first started getting into this. And I was like, whoa, I had no cramps.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's how my period arrives now. And if I do experience cramps, that's my indication where I go, okay, like let's look at maybe what over the past few months I've been doing that's influenced that I'm experiencing some cramps this cycle. Yeah. Not every I think a lot of people think that I just never experience symptoms ever again. And that's not true. It's when the symptoms come up, can we look at why they may be there? I think that's where the power lies. So symptoms like the breast tenderness, the breakouts, cramps, you name it, they're just your body communicating with you. It's your body's language, that there's an underlying imbalance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that kind of
Absolutely.
sums up
so in terms
the
of
general.
So just crossing back a little bit, in terms of the amount of blood as well, is there a sort of a set level or amount that I know we've got certain things like you can actually get some flooding, and a lot of women do deal with a lot of heavy periods, right? Mm-hmm. So what would be a normal sort of amount that we'd be looking at?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of us will think we're losing loads of blood on our period. I mean, gosh, some people are, they've got heavy period, but it's actually, to put it in perspective, it's on average around 50 mils is like a healthy loss of blood. I'd say anything less than like 25 mils is that's a light flow. Anything more than 80 mils is quite a heavy flow. But if you're, I think it's a regular tampon is 5 mils. I don't use tampons anymore, but off the top of my head, it's 5 mils. So around 10 regular sized tampons over the length of your period is, I think, the normal amount. And you shouldn't really be changing it more frequently than, every couple of hours. If you're changing your tampon and pad like, once a day, that's very light. If you're changing it every hour, that's heavy. So yeah, that's something to track as well. And then same as a menstrual cup. Like I'm a menstrual cup girl, and same like with period undies. I no longer use tampons and pads, but I love the menstrual cup because I can really see the amount of blood I'm losing, and I can see, the color as well. And I find that really helpful rather than via tampons. But yeah, I'd say around 50 mils is around that average.
Yeah. And I'm the same. I love the cups. I switched over to them before my second, before I had my second baby, and it was a lifesaver. When I discovered the cup, I was like, why is all these women wasting their money on pads and tampons? You've just got that will last you for 10 years. It's amazing. I've still got mine, and that was like 6-7 years ago.
I was about that same time too, around 7 years ago. I'll never forget, my best friend told me she had bought one, and I remember being like, what? That's gross. Right? I totally judged it. slap my head on the, like, Nikki 17. I was meant, actually, I think I was in high school, to be honest. It was a
Oh
long time
wow,
ago.
even a long time
That
ago.
was long. It was a long time ago. It was maybe 11
Yeah,
years or something. Now I think about it because we were at school. And I remember
yeah,
judging it. And I was like, that's so gross. And then making the switch when I started studying at college, because
yes,
everyone was using a menstrual cup. And I was like, well, I got to get onto this menstrual cup. And
exactly.
like, it not only saves you in the money side of things, but also when you think about like reducing your exposure to toxins. I'm so
Absolutely.
passionate about that too. Like,
Yeah.
everything we're inserting into our bodies, like the conventional tampons and pads have toxins, like, dioxins from the bleaches, the chlorine, the pesticides, and we're inserting them into our vagina, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it's
Wondering
being,
why we're getting
absorbed into our
infections.
bloodstream.
Yep.
Exactly, infections. I know a lot of women who switch to the menstrual cup, and then they're like, "Oh wow, I don't have any more cramps."
Mm.
Happens all the
Inflammation.
time. It's right. So
Yeah.
interesting. So, it's the money, it's the reducing the toxins, and also reducing landfill, which I think is awesome with any kind of reusable product when it comes to, yeah, well, anything really. But that's why I love the period undies. Also game changer. I'm only newly onto them though, as of last year.
Yes.
Have you tried them?
Yes. I haven't, but I've been meaning to for years. Yeah, because
Yeah, they're
they're quite
honestly
new.
great.
Yes.
Yeah, they are new. I only got onto them last year. Again, I was a little hesitant because I was never a pad girl.
Mm.
So I was
Yep.
like, I'm unsure. They're probably a bit like pads. Tried them, never looked back. I'm like, that
Whew.
and menstrual cup, besties.
Yay. All right. Well, we'll have to link up some of the recommended products that you have later
Yeah,
on.
for sure.
My first cup was called Moon Cup. That
Mm,
was the
I
UK's
love
one
that.
because that was the only one available at the time. Now there's Juju. There's so many different ones.
So many.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I was going to cover off sanitary products. We've just done that pretty much. So that's awesome. We've just had a discussion about that. And if anyone's worried about the cups, it takes a little bit of practice because I know some people are a little balk at the idea of actually getting it inserted and doing that sort of thing, especially if you're a lot younger. But the instructions are pretty good. And I think, I'm not sure if you have any good resources in regards to for younger women and doing that. We might be able to talk about that too. But yeah,
Absolutely. There
yeah,
is, yeah, there are a few resources. This is going to sound random, but like YouTube is amazing. I know I have a few girlfriends who run YouTube channels. I can link this with you as well at the end, who will actually talk through the proper insertion of, that's it, right? Yeah, insertion of a cup. And
amazing.
I've heard, yeah, I think it's so helpful. I
Yeah,
haven't gone into detail about that, but I know that it can be overwhelming for some people because I think it'll get stuck.
yeah, absolutely. I've heard of a few people with some issues there. All right, so foundations for hormones and anything that influences our hormones. What sort of things are we looking at here? I know there's, we've got stress, environmental, we've got so many, but let's just talk slowly through some of those things
Yeah.
to make it a little bit clearer for everyone.
Absolutely. So I would say the main foundation that I would always address first is food. Um, Especially today, like the micronutrient deficient diets are really main contributors to period problems and hormone imbalances. So, with the food that we're eating, that we're body with, it is literally providing our body with the nutrients to make internet connection. Sorry, I just come up with an internet thing, but I think it's fine. Yeah, so the food we're eating literally provides our bodies with the nutrients we need to make hormones and metabolize hormones. So what we eat is literally working against our hormones or for them. And I think that's the first place I would start to look when it comes to a main foundation that influences the health of our hormones. We can go into food if you want in more depth.
Yeah, should we
Or
let's talk about sort of the main aggravators, I guess, of the
absolutely.
cycle, or things that we should really be trying to avoid, things that will really
So
that we know upset the cycle.
yeah, so I'd say that, one of the main root causes of hormone imbalance and period problems is inflammation, right? And an amazing way that I like to look at it is like an amazing way to reduce inflammation is by eating an anti-inflammatory diet, right? Whole foods, nutrient dense, full of fiber to help with the, movement of estrogen out of the body. So foods first starting with, say, foods that cause inflammation and may contribute to, hormone imbalance, I'd say the top ones would be sugar. Sugar can mess with our, obviously our blood sugar levels, which is another contributor to especially symptoms of PMS, PCOS as well. And sugar causes inflammation by causing insulin resistance. And it's when, too much of the insulin can impair ovulation. It can stimulate your ovaries to produce too much testosterone, which is, why, insulin resistance is a major driver of PCOS as well. Like, sugar is a main one. I always say, like, as much as possible, how can we limit our intake of sugar? And I think there are so many alternatives today. Like, there's no excuses. I still eat chocolate. I'm a chocolate fiend, but I am eating. I'm even making my own, but I'm eating, right? Everyone's like, oh, you miss all the great foods. No. I eat chocolate daily, honestly, and it's not a guilty, pleasure food for me. Like, well, obviously it's pleasure food. I love it, but I'm not feeling guilty about it. I know it's not affecting my hormones. I'm very, you've got the different sweeteners out there today, which is so much better than, the fine sugars. So yeah, sugar is the main one, I would say. Then also alcohol kind of works in a similar way. Like it impairs estrogen clearance. It can contribute, like insulin resistance as well can be caused by alcohol. Then as well as it can impair our gut microbiome, impairs liver detoxification, all of those things. And that is really going to just wreak hormonal havoc. For me, I don't drink a lot of alcohol at all. I would say most of the year, I've never been someone I don't really care for it. But over the Christmas holidays, I was indulging in it more than I usually would. And this period, it showed. Like, it really did. And I was like, I know it was the alcohol. It's like as clear as day for me. I was like, alcohol, and like, I was indulging in a bit more probably sugar over Christmas. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just knowing, finding what your dose is, your kind of dose of poison is with the alcohol, right?
Absolutely.
And then, go for it. Sorry.
I was just saying that, once you get to a point that you know sort of your limit, or you've gotten yourself to that point where you've healed a lot of your gut issues, your liver's working quite well, your period's coming in nicely, you can probably indulge, those little bits here and there. And yes, your dose then. That's the key point. It's the moderation. It's not I'm drinking 7 drinks every day of the weekend and then expecting my body to recover fully. Younger girls out there and guys may do, but as you get a little bit more, adding on the environmental poisons and all that sort of stuff as well. So you need to be mindful of the fact that you need to put in the work first to heal up, and then you can sort of choose your dose.
Absolutely. Like 100% all about the balance. It's not about being like perfect and not eating or, drinking any of these things. I wouldn't even label any food as good or bad. But it's just having the awareness that, they can affect us, and they're going to affect everyone differently as well. So it's so true. It's like experimenting and finding, what is maybe your trigger or what works for you at what amount. And alcohol is definitely a main one, like obviously after sugar. And then also I would say for a lot of women, and people hate hearing this, it's dairy.
Absolutely.
Right. Especially like acne as well. As a main contributor to that, which I think needs a lot more awareness instead of reaching for a quick pill or, expensive facial serums. Let's look at, if you've never tried eliminating dairy and you suffer from hormonal breakouts, let's give it a go. But in the dairy, I think, it's not really the lactose, it's the A1 casein protein in the dairy, which is seen to be inflammatory, and it promotes like the histamine and stimulates those inflammatory cytokines, but also stimulates the IGF-1 hormone, which is what increases that sebum in the skin and causes the acne breakout. So I'd say dairy is a main thing. Like, hey, I still eat goat's cheese. Yep. And I'm fine. And that's like it doesn't have like the A1 casein or maybe like very minimal amounts. And I'm absolutely fine eating goat's cheese, and I love goat's cheese, and that's my cheese hit. When I was younger, I used to love cheese, and I thought I would miss it forever when I eliminated it, because I discovered it was a root cause of my breakouts. And then I got rid of dairy within, I reckon it was a couple of weeks. I was like, wow, my skin is transformed. And then I would introduce it, I'd break out. Honestly, the next day I'd break out. So yeah, I think dairy is the main one. And then lastly, I would well, there's two other ones. I would say vegetable oil. I would, I don't like to call things evil, how I said before, but I'd be like, guys, if you can avoid vegetable oil like the plague, please do. Like, just avoid it, right? It's the worst. So soy, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil. Did I say that? That's soy. Did I say that one? Yeah. These oils, they're inflammatory, they're high in omega-6, they're, processed, hydrogenated, and they contain a toxic metabolite, trans fat. And this is really what is going to cause inflammation in the body, and that increase in those the prostaglandins, which are really going to contribute to cramps, premenstrual headaches, swollen, tender breasts. So I would say avoiding vegetable oil at all costs. It's why I really like cooking at home, because I know what is exactly in my food and what oils I'm using and cooking with. Because I bet you I'm a bit of a I'll go to cafes and I'll be that girl to ask. Like, I'll be that annoyed.
What oils are you using?
Like, what oils are you using? Because it's one of those, I don't really care about other things. Like, I'm strict at home, but when I go out, I'm lenient. I'm not, I'm not an extremist. But I'm always interested with cafes that I'm going to on a regular basis. There's one cafe I pretty much call my office in Bondi, and I do want to know what oils they're using, because I'm eating the food a lot there.
Exactly.
So I think that's important. And then also being aware of, like, if you're sensitive to gluten, and I know people hate hearing that as well, but it really can be a driving factor for hormone imbalance too. It doesn't mean you have to eliminate it forever at all. It's really, again, it could be an elimination diet and finding out what are your specific triggers. I ramble. So add anything in there.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it really well. What I want to add though is that vegetable oils, I think they're really hidden in everything. So you have to look quite closely, because when you pick up anything packaged in the shops, you can probably almost guarantee that there's going to be a vegetable oil in there of some sort. So that's where avoiding those packaged foods is probably the most important, I would say.
Agreed. I would say too, 100%. And even you'll find, marketing is so misleading on packaging, and even a lot of foods that say organic, like
healthy,
chips that are
all
organic,
natural,
healthy, or look on the back of those ingredients, and I swear most of them will say like some kind of canola oil or sunflower oil. It can be hard to avoid, but there are brands that I know on my program that I specifically recommend that you can find if you just put in the time, and then once you've found your brands, you're
amazing.
good.
Yeah, awesome. And with the gluten as well, like I've noticed that, and just drawing the attention to everyone listening, is that it's more of a gut issue with the gluten, and so you've got the zonulin implications and the intestinal permeability. So once you've opened up those, you're increasing inflammation and toxins all the way through the body. And then once you've healed up that and you have no reactions anymore to it, and your immune system and your inflammatory, cytokines and everything like that, they sort of calm down. The immune system forgets a little bit. As long as you're not overdoing it, most of the time you can have little bits of it here and there, obviously, except for the celiac scenario where you need to avoid it. But also in the wheat products, it's the glyphosate. So that's another thing, we're destroying all our microvilli that are in our gastrointestinal tract. So that's going to be a continual damage, unfortunately.
That's so true. And like jumping onto that, the gut side of things, it's just add that to a main foundation, like gut health, influencing health of hormones. And so obviously our diet is going to affect our gut health, like gluten, like you just mentioned, and the sugar and the alcohol, all these affect gut health. And if our gut health is down, so are our hormones. We have the group of bacteria known as the estrobolome, and they really help metabolize and eliminate estrogen from the body, and they protect us against the buildup of estrogen and the symptoms that come with it. So having a healthy gut is so key. Healthy gut bacteria is going to lower inflammation. It's going to help with our blood sugar. It's going to help with our, breaking down and absorbing all of the essential nutrients from food and supplements that we take that we need for healthy hormones. But yeah, it's food plays a huge role in the impact on the gut health, and gluten is definitely one of them.
Yeah. And all of these foods, when they cause in a local inflammation or a systemic inflammation, unfortunately, they become addictive because they cause then those neurotransmitter releases, unfortunately. And then you can even jump into the serotonin being produced in the gut, and therefore you get some low moods, you know, if you're not feeling good and your gut's not good. So there's so many implications there. So, you know, I think the key takeaway is to actually get your gut sorted as well as your hormones, and both will, you know, correct each other. And doing some testing is actually worthwhile. I don't know if you recommend some of your clients to do it, but in terms of gut testing and actually having a really good picture of your gut microbiome, they've got gut microbiome mapping and all those sorts of things that really help people to figure out exactly where they're looking at and directing them to where they need to sort of outline their treatments, I guess, and their protocols, which is really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Agree.
Yeah. All right. So let me just jump into contraception. Okay. So we've got lots of women. So firstly, I'd like to say is that when I get clients in, I'm sure you're the same, and they're on the contraceptive pill, and they come in and they say, and you ask them about their periods, and you have no idea yet that they're on a contraceptive pill, and they're, oh, my period's great, you know, it goes for 5 days. You know, and like, okay, so you're on a contraceptive pill? Yes, I am. Okay. You know, that's not a normal period. That's not a period. That's like a break. That's just an interim.
It's one of the biggest myths I love to bust.
Yes. Woo. I know. Yeah. So I guess that's probably my starting point, is that when you're on a contraceptive pill, you're not actually having a real period.
No, you're not. It's you call it a withdrawal bleed, and it's actually, so when you're taking those sugar pills, it's your body withdrawing from those synthetic hormones, so it's chemically induced. What's interesting is that when the pill first came out, those sugar pills weren't actually in the packet, but women wanted the reassurance that they weren't pregnant, so they popped them in. So really, it's more for psychological comfort that you're not pregnant, which is really interesting. So there really isn't like a medical reasoning behind having that bleed on the pill, which is interesting. Women do like to help with the breakthrough bleed, I'd say, but there's no every week. I remember the doctor told me, I'll never forget, he's like, make sure you take the sugar pills every month so you can have your period. And that's the thing, like a lot of women will say to me as well, why would I need to, you know, my period's great, it was missing for years, I went on the pill and then it was regulated. And it's like, no, it's not actually a real period. You know, we're not having a period because, you know, the pill works by shutting down you know, ovulation and our entire hormonal system. So we're not producing those beautiful natural hormones to, you know, have a healthy period, and instead you know, the pills obviously replacing them with synthetic steroid versions, which are not having the same effect on the body. But yeah, I would say biggest myth is the period that you have on the pill is not a real period.
So I got that one, number one, from the start, did I? That's good. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there's so many more different apps and measures of tracking your period out there now. And in clinic, my favorite method is just the mucus method, temperature, taking your cycle down and making sure, obviously it's really hard for some people when they don't have a regular cycle. And I think that's probably the number one hurdle with the natural contraceptive method. But there's some really nice apps out there, and I'm sure you know a lot more than me about it all. So run us through some of the options that people have got.
Yeah, so my favorite too, like fertility awareness method. That's personally what I do, is like track basal body temperature, cervical mucus changes, and my cervix positioning. It's really learning those, you know, your body's signals of fertility to be able to predict your, you know, fertile days. And it's during those fertile days where obviously you want to be use protection or abstain from sex. But I think that it can be that a lot of women do get overwhelmed by that, and they might not, you know, have a lot of trust in it. And I get it. We were never taught. We're never taught this. So of course it's overwhelming. You know, the first thing we're offered as birth control is the pill. You know, and the fertility awareness method is incredibly effective when done right. And it can take time, just like everything. It's a journey. I didn't learn this overnight. It took me a while to really understand my body's signs of fertility, and when my fertile days are. And I never used to have a regular period, so my number one thing was like, let's get my cycle regular, and then let's start incorporating these methods. So fertility awareness method, I'd say. I highly recommend the book Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony Weschler. It teaches you all of this. It's amazing. Otherwise, I also recommend getting a fertility awareness method coach, even, because there are people who have specifically studied it. I learned it through someone and the book. But I took the time, because you want to get it right. And once you've got it, it's a game changer. So that, absolutely. And if you're someone who's overwhelmed by it, I actually do recommend Daisy fertility device. I've used that personally. I actually ended up gifting mine to my sister. Because
you've got it sorted.
I've got it sorted now, so I was like, I don't really need it. But I highly, like, for people just starting out, or they don't trust themselves in tracking their cervix position and the fluids or whatever, even though I think it's so empowering. The Daisy device, it does the work for you. It takes a temperature every morning, and then it's a computer algorithm that's synced with like 5 million women's different cycles, and it's able to indicate your fertile, infertile days. So that's one option. And then when it comes to the apps, there's so many apps. There is. And ones, I think, favorites these days I hear are like the Clue app. There's Flow. There's the generic like period tracker for anyone who wants to take their temperature each morning. Kindara is really great in charting that for you. They're the main ones that pop to mind. Some of them are free, some of them aren't. So my biggest recommendations, because I know people vibe with some and others don't. So download a few of them, have a feel for the interface, and whatever clicks with you, I would use that one, and just getting really consistent in tracking your period, and not just your period, like how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis is so important.
Absolutely.
And not just relying, I'm 100% not just relying on the app to tell you when you're ovulating.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of women do that. I used to do that.
Yeah.
When I first got into the apps, I was like, oh yeah, the computer says I'm ovulating today, so the app says I'm ovulating today. So, that's where the signs of fertility are amazing to complement that.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of women do get some kind of niggling or some kind of sensation when they're ovulating, which is a good sort of telltale sign, plus the mucus. And it's not as scary as you think. I remember one of my friends who'd been on the pill, or actually Depo-Provera, the injection, for over 10 years. And when she came off it and she wanted to get pregnant, and I was telling her about these fertility methods in terms of like tracking your cycle and everything. And I'm like, the mucus, and I was sending her all these pictures of the different stages of the mucus, and she was like, oh, Jodie, that's gross. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, really? I think it's pretty cool.
So cool.
But so many people still think that is gross or disgusting, and, men and all that sort of thing as well. And we'll talk about that. But, guys, I think, also need to have a little bit more education surrounding everything to make it a bit more normal and not so out there. Yeah. And
not so dependent on the female as well. Like, yes, obviously we'll track our signs of fertility, but what I think is awesome, I know couples today, I've never done this, but I've had many conversations, they share their app with their partners, so their partners are aware of what phase of the cycle their significant other is in, or they're aware that, oh, cool, instead of us having to be like, babe, I'm about to get my period, or I'm actually fertile, they're on top of it with you, so they can actually work with you and support you during these different phases as well. Yeah. And making it normal to talk to your partner about it is, my gosh, it's so essential. Firstly, being able to talk about it with, not being afraid of your cervical fluid. When we think that our periods are gross and cervical fluids gross, to me, it's fostering like a total disconnect from our bodies. And I think that's also this might sound a bit woo-woo to some people, but what can foster, menstrual problems as well. If we are completely detached from our wombs and, our inner like natural rhythms, our wombs and our uteruses are going to be like, hey, pay attention to me. Like, I exist. Right.
Absolutely. I agree.
But I think it's such an important part of us, and to be able to talk about it and view it as natural, powerful and maybe beautiful. I don't know, it's maybe not the word to use, but it's important. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it can affect, with our cervix being sort of the entry point into the womb. It's a very sensitive and very sensual area, so it can also impact sex and pain during sex and all of that sort of stuff. So that's, I guess, a complete other topic, but just know that those sorts of things also are very important to become comfortable with, because it can also impact that for sure.
Absolutely.
So in terms of what methods then, when you're ovulating, what would you recommend women use for protection?
Yeah, so like condoms, they get a bad rap, but they're amazing. There are so many options today when it comes to condoms.
Yes.
I think that a lot of us, we just think we go to Chemist Warehouse and just get the generic condom brands, which one are full of toxins and spermicide, and then two, of course, you're going to think they're uncomfortable. They're very general. So there are brands. There's one, My One Perfect Fit, which has like over 60 different sizes, and you can get really specific to your partner and what can make it the most comfortable as possible for him and you. And then there's also the non-toxic types of condoms as well. So you've got an awesome Aussie brand that I really love recommending to people is the Johnny condoms, and you've got Glide and Sir Richards, and you can get them off Amazon as well. So there are options. I'm a condom advocate. Then also there is the diaphragm. I personally never tried a diaphragm, and on my to-do list for 2020, because I feel like I want to try it all, I have to order I think it's the brand is Koya. Someone recommended it to me, so I want to order one, and I want to try a diaphragm. I've heard some of I think like one of my closest friends uses one. She swears by it. But there's that, and then there's also the female condom. Again, haven't tried. But I'd say anything to add? They're the main ones I would suggest.
I guess some of the questions I get, some things that are discussed in terms of the pull-out method, and I think it's more so a trust issue there with the pull-out method, and it has to, not trust issue, but it has to be a very mutual agreement between the partners.
So with the withdrawal method, I'm like personally, and I've spoken about this on Instagram before, and it'll divide people. And I'll get told off for saying that I use it. But honestly, I use like with a long-term partner. Obviously you want to make sure that you're all checked for your STDs and all that kind of stuff. But withdrawal method, I'm all for if it's done right. And that is a lot of trust in your partner, and he needs to be confident that he knows how to do it properly. But on my fertile days, I use a condom. It's just to be sure. Just to be sure. And then every other day of the month, you're fine. I think it's important to know that, your fertile days are really the 5 days in the lead up to ovulation. That's how long the sperm survives. Then the 1 day after ovulation, because that's how long your egg can survive. And there around the days, I'm going to, opt for a condom. And then every other day of the month when I'm in a long-term relationship, I'm sweet with the withdrawal method when I've discussed the importance of my partner, like being on top of it. And we're all good.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement with you. And,
cool.
I've had 2 kids. I'm not really wanting any more. And so, we're me and my husband, we're very aware that we don't want to have any more. So we're careful, but those methods work perfect. And as long as you know your bodies, then I don't think there's an issue. And it's really getting to know your body. And after this many years, we've gotten to know each other's bodies quite well, which is good.
Agreed. Love it.
So we've busted one myth in terms of the unreal period on a contraceptive pill. Anything else that there's other bogus period facts?
Other bogus period facts. Okay, so we got the pill one. Oh yeah, the pill bleed. That's bogus. I'd also say, and I think we covered this as well, as like one of the main ones, and especially what I love to talk about is that, PMS and period pain are not normal. They're just common, right? Let's not accept them as normal anymore. If anyone's listening to this, look into it.
Don't accept it.
And then, don't accept it. And then my other favorite one as well is to be honest, we've covered quite a lot of them, is that, you know, the pill fixes period symptoms, regulates hormones, and like clears your skin, right? When really it's just working as a band-aid. All those issues, you're going on the pill, all those issues, you're just putting a band-aid over it. And whether it's 6 months or 10 years down the track and you decide to go off the pill, you're ripping that band-aid off, and those period symptoms are still bubbling beneath the surface. Often they come back worse, sometimes with additional imbalances. So I think that's a big myth. Yeah,
that definitely needs to be said, because that's a really common one, people think. Yeah, and still
that
do.
It just fixes periods. Totally, I'd say it's extremely common. Yeah, they're the main ones. I think we kind of ticked off the main ones that I always talk about. Yeah.
Cool. So in with that, when you're on a pill and you want to look at coming off the pill, I think it's important for everyone to know that you can do some work while you're on the pill still. Yeah. And so it becomes a little bit more of that easier transition when you come off it. You know, cutting things out like dairy and gluten and fixing your diet and all those sorts of things will really impact the way that you come off it. There may still be some worsening of symptoms, but I think people find that it's a lot less if you do the work while you're on the pill still, and then you can come off it.
I totally agree. I think that instead of just going completely cold turkey, learning how to start living life in support of hormones naturally whilst you're on the pill is going to set you up, like you said, like starting with the healthy diet, and becoming aware of, you know, the foundations that we spoke about, you know, making the switch to natural, you know, options of skincare and makeup. And it's all of these little shifts that we can make. Well, you know, big and little, it's little shifts over time. I like to look at it, because you don't have to go and make changes all at once. Just pick things to avoid overwhelm, pick things, you know, small shifts over time, and preparing your body for that transition off. And I usually, like, the Moonbox program is 12 weeks, and I'll usually say, if people message me, oh, I want to come off the pill, then start your program, I'll actually usually say, hey, I actually recommend doing the program for 12 weeks, looking into additional supplementation, because the pill, it causes nutrient deficiencies, can cause, you know, extra inflammation in the body. How can we start replenishing those lost nutrient stores? How can we start to already reduce inflammation so that your body can bounce back stronger, and really, let's, you know, hope that you get a regular cycle sooner rather than later, because for a lot of women it can take a long time. But I feel that when you prepare your body, you'll be able to bounce. It's more resilient. That's it.
Yeah. I love that your program's 12 weeks too, because I love the fact that it's that 3-month period where you've got that complete cell turnover, and you've got a complete change of those, or mainly the red blood cells, and you can get complete micronutrient, you know, resaturation back into the body. And so you really notice big changes by that 3-month point.
Agreed. I think that's what I love explaining why it's 12 weeks, exactly like you just said, because I think we're wired, or we grow up in a society that just wants quick fixes. Right? You know, we want better skin tomorrow. We want to fix our periods by next month. We want to lose weight within 4 weeks. And at the end of the day, like, right? It's so true.
Yeah.
With, you know, quick pill, like quick.
Where's my magic pill?
Yeah. And the thing is, when it comes to period health, there is no quick pill. It is a long-term project, and it's lifelong, really. Your hormone health, your relationship with your hormones is lifelong. And so those 12 weeks is the time it really takes to reset properly. I think, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, 12 weeks is so long. And I'm like, well, in the big scheme of things, you know, it's 3 periods out of the life, you know, the rest of your life of periods you have left till you enter, say, menopause. And it's really the health of your hormones today that is going to influence how you experience entering menopause once you get there as well. So people are like, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about, you know, my fertility until I want to get pregnant. It's like, well, actually, these are the foundations, and you want to start getting on top of it now. So the 12 weeks really takes you through learning, you know, setting those solid foundations, and then the improvements start to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just want to jump back into PMS, because I know I had a few questions from people on social media, and they were asking, because a lot of people aren't aware of the different types of PMS. And I had a question come in from about anxiety, and we know that there's different forms of PMS. So maybe we can go through that and just tick off some of the key symptoms that we see on the different forms of PMS?
Yeah, sure. So PMS can range, I think it's like over 50 different symptoms you can experience with PMS. So it can be anxiety. Some people can experience with PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. You can experience like serious anxiety and depression leading up to your cycle. Then there's also, you got the swollen tender breasts, which I'd say is one of the most common symptoms that women experience, and one of the big ones people think are normal. I used to get them. I have not had tender breasts for a very, very long time. And that really is like, you know, the buildup of estrogen and inflammation in the body. Then you've also got like acne breakouts as a sign, you know, falls under the PMS bracket as well. Same as bloating, cravings, irritability. The list goes on. Hey, I'm trying to. It
does. There's lots and lots.
I blanked.
Headaches.
There's lots, and headache. Yeah, premenstrual headaches are huge. Migraines as well, like
tiredness,
I would say
moodiness,
fatigue, insomnia as well before your period can be really common. I'd say they're the main ones. Now, off the top of my head.
Before periods too, I do tell a lot of my clients, because with the progesterone, it actually increases your metabolism, doesn't it? So you've actually got an increased amount of burning capacity of your food. So to be a little bit hungrier just before your period, it's actually quite normal.
Okay.
Yeah. I tell, if you're hungry, eat.
You're burning more calories than if people are worried about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. You can, eat nourishing foods.
Yeah.
That, you know, are going to satiate and make you feel good and ground. Like I love eating grounding foods before my period, like and warming foods as well. You know, when we're on our period, we are losing nutrients through blood loss. So preparing for that before your period and during your period is, of course, well after as well. But you know, really eating nutrient dense foods is so important. And 100%, everyone's going to get a little bit more hungry before their period. A lot of people, you know, I like clockwork. Like I even use my period, I'm like, I'm gonna eat a bit more chocolate. Because it's like, it's a comfort thing as well, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, I'm a peanut butter on toast girl, like a gluten-free toast and peanut butter. I'm just like, my period's around the corner, I know it's coming.
Yeah, right. That's so funny. Yeah, I have similar things like that too. But yeah, I think a lot of women will feel guilty, or they beat themselves up for eating more in that part of their cycle. And no, it's once, and the beauty about knowing that you're in that premenstrual phase is that you're able to go, oh, that's okay. I know what my hormones are doing. They're affecting me in this way, and it's making me more hungry, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So it fosters this level of self-acceptance rather than, you know, guilt or beating yourself, you know, self-hatred for eating more food. Yeah. So it's okay. Yeah.
And feeling more overwhelmed in terms of emotions. Like I know I'll always be a little bit more overwhelmed, and I think that's quite natural. And again, we have to be a little bit self-accepting and loving at that time of the month. Which is so important, and extra support. I really love the work of John Gray. Have you followed any of his work in terms of the hormone build-up with partners? It's really interesting.
You know what? I haven't, but you're not the first person who's said his name to me recently, which means I have to write that down. No, I haven't.
So he's got a book out. The reason I say it, I was in London and I watched him speak at a conference, and he's the funniest guy. And I've showed a few of my students a video of his, and he's amazing. And so what he talks about is the build-up of the different phases of the woman's cycle, and how the man or the partner or the friends can support through those different phases, and so that we actually feel a little bit more connected in all those different phases. So it's a really good read. He's got his second, I think it's the second Mars and Venus book. It's a modern take on the Mars and Venus, which is I'll try and link it up in the comments.
Please do, because I'm 100% going to go and order that book.
Yeah. I can't, off the top of my head, why can't I think of the book's name? It'll come to me in a minute. But while I think about it, I also wanted to cover off iron, because most women come into the clinic, and also all over the world will have are having, and I'm hearing about it, more and more and more iron issues, whether they can't sustain enough iron in their body, whether their gut issues, and liver issues, and also with the period. So I don't know if you have any insight in terms of that, where you cover any of that in your courses and advice.
Yeah, so with the iron, obviously fatigue is like a common indication, so like serious fatigue. Also, heavy periods can cause iron deficiency. Iron deficiency can cause heavy periods. It's kind of a both ways thing. But the first thing I find that looking at diet, like I will always recommend getting your bloods tested before anything, especially before supplementing, because you don't want to be taking too much iron.
Absolutely.
But looking at what the food that you're consuming, I'd say is first up. So, your green veggies, like your spinach, your silver beets, broccoli, same with like nuts and seeds, animal protein. For me, my view on animal protein is that it really is ticking that iron box. Like, that's personally the iron and the zinc and the iodine, the B12, but always going quality over quantity. So like Absolutely. With animal protein, like when and wherever you can, organic, grass-fed, grass-finished if you can, get the organic eggs, buy the organic chicken, like, and it is more expensive, but how can we start adjusting our priorities of where we spend our money and maybe putting it more towards that, because it really does make a difference. But yeah, I always will say look at food first when it comes to the iron side of things. And if you are vegan, vegetarian, supplementation and like being on top of getting your bloods tested regularly is so important, because it's really going to influence periods and like hormones and how you feel in general.
Definitely. And there is a lot more people becoming vegan after the documentary Game Changers. Definitely not going to get into that now, but it is really important to note that you have to do it right. If you're going to go into a diet that's missing some of components that your body actually requires. And I come from a background of being vegan mostly. But it's very necessary to maintain good nutritional values of supplementation. And now I find it so much better for me just to include those minor amounts of the animal proteins, and it's not even that much that you need, and good quality, like you say, that it's, you're using it more as a supplement if you choose to feel that way about it. And it's a cheaper supplement, to tell you the truth, by doing it on those, less regular amounts of time. And it's enough then for your body to maintain that good level, which is super important. There's so many aspects that a lot of people don't realize because they don't study the underlying biochemistry that goes on behind it all, which is hard to explain as well to people, unfortunately.
It is. And, unfortunately, a lot of defense can come up around that, but I'll always come from a place of like, there is no one diet that is going to suit every single person. So say the doco, people watch it, that is a diet for everyone's going to thrive off that diet. No. Like, it's not how it's going to be, right?
That's right.
Like, some people will thrive off being vegan, whatever. That's awesome when it's done correctly. And to always, whatever diet it may be, vegan, the keto, paleo, whatever it may be, sure, you may thrive off that particular diet for a couple of years, but please continue to check in.
Yes.
Check in if it is still serving you, because after 6 months or a year or even 2 years, your nutrient stores can start to deplete over time. And that's when the symptoms start to arise. And a lot of people will be really headstrong in this diet being the right diet, to be on, instead of going, hang on, maybe it's not serving me in the way that I've read about. So instead of always, instead of listening and believing everything you read and hear, first thing to listen to is your body above all else, over anything. Yeah.
Definitely. And to seek out a really good professional support, whether it's the courses, whether it's a nutritionist, whether it's a naturopath, or someone who really that you get along with and supports you, even an integrated practitioner, anyone that you feel that can really look after you and help guide you into those right directions, because the world out there and the internet is a plethora of information that's super confusing, and you can dive down into the wrong rabbit hole every second turn, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Nikki, we have, this has just gone so quick. I can't believe it. I have a few more questions.
So quick.
Yeah, I reckon we could talk for like 3 hours easily about this stuff. We might have to do a second one, I think, a follow-up.
Yeah, we can absolutely do a second one, break it up.
So I just wanted to get into 5 changes for 2020 that we can make for our hormone health. What would be your 5 things that you recommend?
Okay, first one I would say is eat more leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables. So important. Things like broccoli, kale, bok choy, Brussels sprouts. These specifically contain, the good old compound DIM that's really going to help with estrogen metabolism, help with, healthy liver detoxification. Filling up half of your plate with greens with every meal as much as you can. You just can't eat too many like leafy veg, right? You gotta, there's another, if you have thyroid problems, you want to
there is an aside, yes. That's why you need a good practitioner.
But exactly. Good practitioner always tune in to what is working or not working for you. But yeah, absolutely. I would say leafy vegetables is so important to help with hormone metabolism. Then I would say my other 2020 biggest recommendation would be to prioritize soaking up vitamin D from the sun. Really help with that vitamin D production. I think it's one of the most overlooked foundations to not just hormone health, but overall health, helping with hormone, immune, mood regulation, deficiency in vitamin D, it's linked to depression, anxiety, PCOS, PMS symptoms, cramps, like, having adequate levels of vitamin D is going to help reduce those levels of prostaglandins. And like I said before, prostaglandins are what's, causing those cramps. So, vitamin D and exposing yourself, like at the moment whilst the sun is out, I'm getting outside for, even though I'm super busy, I'm like 15, 20 minutes a day, or eat your lunch outside, or when you wake up, just go and eat breakfast outside. And
as naked as possible, I always tell everyone.
I was about to say that.
Get your clothes off.
Get your clothes off. And I would say be sun smart, obviously, but also be aware that like sunscreen does block vitamin D production. So for the first, know your limit, but I'll always be sunscreen free at first. And then I know my limit. I have olive skin, so I need a little bit more vitamin D, but I wear non-toxic sunscreen afterwards. I'm still sun smart, but not, the beginning, no sunscreen for me. And then I would say increase your magnesium intake. I am such a lover of magnesium. It is like a magic period mineral. It's going to help with estrogen metabolism, inflammation, insulin sensitivity. It's going to help with sleep, with thyroid health. It really is amazing for an all-round mineral to increase. So whether that's through foods, like your leafy veg, your nuts and seeds, your greens, let's double up on that, but and also I do recommend supplementation. Usually in Moonbox we have a Moon Boost magnesium oil, which is like pure magnesium chloride oil, which I find I love. But a lot of us are magnesium deficient today, whether it's from like the depletion in our soils of nutrients, or when we're stressed, like chronic low level of everyday stress, our bodies are constantly dumping magnesium too. You need it.
Absolutely. The energy
cycle. That would be another thing.
Yeah.
Should I give you another? I don't know how many that is, but I'll give you another one. I would say eating healthy fats and not fearing fat.
Yes, I love that.
Very important, right?
Yeah.
That I always say, like, healthy fats don't make you fat; they make hormones.
Yes, I love that saying. So true. Yeah. We have to get away from that fat scare.
I know. I hate that it's still around.
It
seems, it's crazy. But yeah, the beauty about fats is, they help make hormones, and they're also, you know, your omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory, which is great. So what, you know, your oily fish, like I'll call it salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, even if you're an anchovy fan. And then if you're not so much an oily fish fan, that's when like maybe looking into you know, a really high quality supplement of omega-3 fatty acids. And you've even got like hemp seeds, chia seeds. There's lots of options. So that would be another thing. And lastly, I would say make the switch to non-toxic skincare and makeup. I just can't, I personally think it's important. It's like, how can we limit our exposure as much as possible and what's in our control? And what's in our control is in our home and the products we buy, because everything, you know, we put on our skin, like I said, it can influence.
Even deodorant, you know, and
oh my gosh,
skin lotion, everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I recommend, I have like on my Insta, I share very specific like favorite brands that I've over time found, trialed, tested, loved. I feel like I've tried every natural deodorant under the sun, because I feel with that people go, oh, it doesn't work. And I'll say, well, try another one, because a non-toxic deodorant or natural deodorant might work for you and it might not work for me. Everyone's different. So don't give up on the natural side of like makeup or makeup, skincare, deodorant, because there are so many options today. Again, I just don't think there's an excuse around it. Like even David Jones now sells edible beauty, which I love edible beauty. So I'm like, sweet, it's become more mainstream.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many different mineral ones and all sorts, makeups, everything. You can always find the better option. Yeah, definitely. Totally. All right. So firstly, what do you wish for all women, or what that all women knew about their periods? You know, so if they were the ones coming straight into menses, what's the one thing that you wish that they knew straight away?
Straight away, that your period does not have to be a burden to you. If you're not destined to be in pain or to suffer, that it is really, you know, a powerful, important, natural part of, you know, it's part of our like innate power as a woman, and being able to like tune into that, you're able to live life at your biggest potential, like personal and professionally. I truly believe that. So not just to know that you're not destined. Mother Nature has not cursed us to be in pain each month, and you know, to support your body naturally in achieving a healthy cycle. Probably be the first thing I say.
Yeah, definitely. And to constantly seek out that normal and truth, and to have that beautiful period that you deserve. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nikki. So tell us about Moonbox now. Finally, give us a bit of a rundown of what you're doing. What's sort of the future of Moonbox? What you're doing this year? Give us a bit of an overview of everything that you've got planned.
It's really exciting for me, 2020 this year. I have big plans. So really in a nutshell, Moonbox, I've said a little about it throughout this program, but it is a 12-week, throughout this podcast, but it's a 12-week program. And it really provides you with all the support, the knowledge, the empowerment to balance hormones naturally and relieve those, you know, monthly symptoms of PMS and period irregularities. And even supporting women on the pill, in the transition off the pill. Like I said before, I don't want anyone to feel alone in the world of hormones and periods. And that's really why I created Moonbox, to provide women with that support and understanding of how to start living life in support of hormones, so that they're set for long-term health. So you have like the online side of the program. One of the, I think, my subscribers' favorite part is the actual online community, where I have hundreds of women now, which it excites me so much. And it's run by Moonbox naturopaths and myself. And everyone's sharing their period stories and hormone nourishing recipes, and it's really cool. So there's that side, and then each month you receive a monthly delivery of Moonbox products, and they provide that extra support on top of the foundational changes you make. Because there's no one supplement or product that's going to fix your periods. It's that holistic support, which is what I'm really passionate about. So over the 3 months, you receive the different period Moonbox products, anything from teas to beautiful elixirs to magnesium oil, salts, non-toxic skincare, and acne support, etc. It's like a box of love each month, and also a reminder to check in with where you are in your
Wow.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just launched like UK and US, which the USA, which I'm so excited about.
Well done.
Yeah, it happened. It happened quite fast. I didn't really expect to do that, but my dream for this year is actually to go to the US and set up shop there after I really got it right in Australia, and spread all the love, the period love here first.
Amazing. Well, keep
but
me
yeah,
posted on that, because I've got a few colleagues
I
and friends in US,
will.
and so we'll have
Oh,
to help you spread the love
awesome.
over there.
Thanks. Oh, any support, that is so appreciated. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. Just
Amazing.
continue to spread it.
Yeah, you're doing such amazing work, Nikki. And
Thank you.
keep going. And I can't wait to see what else you've got in store down the track. And for anyone wanting to go into the program, there's obviously your Instagram. You've got My Moonbox, and anywhere else they can contact you or get a hold of you. Obviously the website as well.
Yeah, the website's
Yep.
just mymoonbox.com.au. I am on Facebook, but I'm way more active on Instagram, just at my moonbox. I respond to my DMs. I shouldn't promote that, but I really do make it quite personal. Like, I like to voice message everyone.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone can reach out and they know where to find you. It's been an absolute pleasure, Nikki. I really appreciate your time spent here, and I really look forward to keeping in touch in the future.
Me too, lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too.